I suggest people not to stick to a company more than 3 to 5 years. Anything beyond that is unfair to the company as well as to the employee. You'll stop learning. You'll get into a comfort zone.
That is such a cool insight. Very counterintuitive to what you would hear.
One of the core thesis here is that if you're not doing enough mistakes, that means you're not taking enough risk. That means you don't have ownership because you are just doing a job.
Nakul Kumar co-founded Cashify, the company that made second-hand iPhones mainstream in India. Today, it is the country's biggest re-commerce platform, processing millions of devices every year.
You actually need people with high ownership rather than high skills. Females are just better workers in terms of blue collared, white collar, they give better output, they're more loyal to the company.
What's one thing that you would never do again in terms of hiring? Cashify, you are right now a scaled company, but just walk me through quickly in terms of your journey. Was there like defined steps in how the company moved, was it like a natural progression?
I think it's been a long journey. We started in 2014, almost 12, 13 years.
Right.
And I've never imagined we'll reach where we are in terms of revenue, people. So it's been surreal for me as well. But it's been a challenging decade. It's not been easy. And primarily from building a category, creating a company in India is tough, especially if you don't have peers globally who have a similar business model. So getting the market to understand, getting the investors to understand a new business model which is unique to India has been challenging. Also, this is hard nuts and bolts business, very operational intensive, and again, not the best of business models to attract investors. So it has had its own fair challenges, but every year has been different. So every year the challenge has been different. The moment has been different. There's a lot of FOMO for us as founders that 2016 everybody was raising on e-commerce, 2019 something else, 2024 quick commerce, and everybody is raising shitload of money, and you're like, oh, what kind of business am I in? And nobody likes me. So we've been through all those phases. So it's been an interesting journey. We have been very patient. We have not lost focus. We have not gone into FOMO. We have not done things because the market expects us to do or is the sexy thing to do. So we've just controlled ourselves on doing those things.
So is there anything similar to the used car business here?
No, so the used car business and us are very similar. Just the asset is very different. But globally, especially look at markets like US and Japan, the used phone business is primarily controlled by the carriers because the new phones are sold by carriers, and hence works very differently. There is not a consumer trade-in program. It's just you bring your old phone to the carrier and they'll give you a new phone and lock you in with the telecom plan. So, and other markets had you just ship your phones, they trust you, consumer trust you, and then we'll evaluate in our warehouse. We'll give you a price. If you like it, you take it, otherwise we'll send it you back. Those kind of things were not going to work in India. No, we were very sure about it. It's a low trust society. When we started out, we were no brand. Why would anybody trust us to give their asset without payment? So we were very sure from day one that payment has to be instant. It has to be at the doorstep. Those kind of things were not seen across the globe anywhere. I think that pushed us to build something very unique for India. And here we are.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about not being a brand, right? Now, in terms of hiring, how did it play out? I mean, where did your first 20 employees come from? Was it personal networks? What did you do to get these guys on board?
Yeah, that's been a very interesting journey. Before this, we were into manufacturing. So me and Mandeep used to run a tire recycling facility. So all the time we were only working with blue collar workforce. Uh, so we had an idea how to work with blue collar workforce and what expectations and everything. So our initial hires were just people around us. So, for example, there was a guy in our co-working space who was a good IT guy, and he was looking out. That was our first joining. Yeah, because I trusted him in doing the IT stuff in the office, and looked like a good guy. And we were building from zero, so anybody, and he learned on the job. So maybe repairing laptops was not his forte, and networking was. But we gave him the task, and then you give people responsibilities and compensate them. They thrive. So if you talk about early days of Cashify, the first 20 employees were all blue collar workers. Either they were logistic guys, technicians, call center guys, all of them, handpicked by us in different aspects. So, for example, the first sales guy we hired had come to pitch us monster.com. I remember clearly. And while while we couldn't afford a subscription of monster.com, but we made him an offer, and he said, "Yeah, sounds interesting." And from next month, he was with us.
That's so
but
cool.
we really liked his sales presentation on how he was pitching to us, and we said, maybe this is the guy who will work for us.
That's a fabulous story. Now, at what point in time did hiring become like, okay, I need to do something specifically to hiring? I mean, obviously, since you probably didn't have to do tech hiring to begin with, I think this is a very different set of people that you had to look for, right? So
yeah. So
and I'm assuming all this was also in the NCR area, or
yeah. We started out of Gurgaon only. And I think the first 2025 was technicians. Initially, we had outsourced our tech to Amit, who was not our co-founder at that time, was running his own services company. So tech was not a problem per se. So hiring was basically dependent on how much budget we had for each profile. And then that was the first filter which came in. And which is very different to startup these days, where they say for the right person, money is not a problem. Money was always a problem for us at any stage, even now. So we've never been, no, money is not a problem for any role. Money is always going to be a problem for any role. And now with the larger organization, it is more problem because at every level you have set salary benchmarks. You can't just bring in somebody who's twice paid for the same role, and there are other people in the company who are being paid less. It's just unfair for the system, and your system will also break eventually because of that. So while I know startup founders who are saying, yes, I have raised money, I will hire anybody. I don't think it's a long-term strategy which works well for an organization. If you have to build a stable organization, because egos come, people, and I have never seen anybody's salary hidden from anybody. I don't know how it leaks, but everybody knows what
everybody else's salary.
yeah. So you can never have an organization where you have people doing the same thing but at different salary levels. That has been my learning for last 10 years, and we have tried to abide by that.
Was there a critical hire that you needed at that time, or between the founders, you know,
No, I think
pretty much managed?
my first HR hire was a difficult one because I'd never believed that we needed HR. So if you look at from a progression till we were about 200, 250 people, I had interviewed every single one of them before they had joined. And just something we had built culturally where me and Mandeep were always involved in hiring. And hence that worked for us. But after a certain skill, obviously, we couldn't continue operating like that. Today also, it doesn't matter what role it is. It's an entry level role or a senior level management role. I am happy to interview at any position. It's just
Nice.
you understand more from interviews, not just the person but the market, the industry. Especially if you are building a new category, you want to understand that. It's good to interview people, understand their uh, preferences. I am a marketing guy, so I also like to understand brand perception. How do they perceive Cashify as a brand? Why would they want to join Cashify? So those kind of things also work. But again, looking back, I think for me, hiring the first HR person was a tough gig. Also, the kind of
But why that? I mean, why? Any specific reason why? Was it because there were a lot more technician?
yeah, I think because there were
Board?
more blue collar people early on,
Okay.
um, and the sex ratio also was very skewed. Right, we
Yeah.
hardly had females till about we were 50-member team, so it was a 50-member male team. It was like when I look back, it's not a great look. And also, I believe that females are just better workers in terms of blue collared, white collar. Just they give better output. They're smarter, and more loyal to the company. So I think naturally a female hire should been given priority. But in terms of India, the number of applicants per position is so skewed towards male that you eventually hire male because it's just more in numbers. So I have a very
Is that true for non-tech as well, or the
everything.
Sorry, yeah, no. Okay.
Yeah. So for example, we have a target internally to increase. So in our factory in Noida, we have about 22% female right now. The goal is to have at least 50-50. And the reason, and 22% also we have been able to achieve because we have a training team. We get freshers, we train them and get them job ready, and then they start working for us. So you have to create an environment. You need to have female security guards. You have to have good female bathrooms. Those things which are taken for granted are not granted. I remember the first warehouse we had, and we started pushing this agenda of hiring more female workers. That time my warehouse manager came. We don't have a female washroom. Yeah. So we need to construct a female washroom and hire additional female security because male security can't check female employees. That's an additional cost of say about 1 lakh per month. And are we willing to take that? Because that will hit our P&L. And those are the kind of calls you had to take as an entrepreneur, saying that no, this will work long term. Let's build it today. And it is not going to affect my P&L now, but that's the future. So the next time we built a warehouse, a bigger warehouse, we had already provisioned everything, that there will be enough female bathrooms, water, number of workforce, female security guards, everything.
And this is just with the factory setup, or even with the retail setup, you see similar stuff?
No, so retail, we have a lot of female staff. Again, depending on location and vice. So we want to encourage more female participation in the workforce. And again, not just being, woke or being politically correct. They're just better workers. I'm just being a practical businessman.
So if you look at the team, so it's breakup of people who work in the factory, people who work in retail, and some who work in corporate/tech, right?
Yeah.
So the majority of them would be where? I'm assuming, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming the tech team is probably the smallest.
No, so we are a fairly large tech team. We have about 200 people in tech.
Oh, okay.
We are basically a tech team because I, you don't understand the complexity of having such a heavy operation move so smoothly. It cannot be done without tech. So yeah, there is a lot of backend.
So tech as
tech.
in, this, okay.
It's just not the front end tech where we are sourcing devices from you. It's how the device travels from your home to first the local hub and then goes back to the factory. And then in the factory, it is diagnosed, data wiped, refurbished, and then goes back to the retail store to be sold out. So to manage the device life cycle from end to end, a lot of tech is required because every time a device moves from one place to another, there needs to be a handshake. And the assessment needs to match. So again, there's a lot of tech involvement, which people don't realize.
Okay. And this is all homegrown? You had to build
Yes.
everything?
Yeah, so we had to build everything because it's a unique category. There are no ready-made tech play available. And there were some players in US who were trying to sell, but they were so heavily priced that in a country like India, where I'm serving country which has low ASP and low margin, I can't afford that kind of tech. So hence we had to build everything from ground up.
Okay. And one of you founders play the role of the CTO, or you have to hire somebody to head?
No, so Amit, who's my third co-founder, was CTO for the largest period of time. Now he's moved from doing tech to now getting into sales.
Right.
But yeah, so he had been the tech backbone for the longest time.
Okay. And you said you had outsourced part of the tech, and then everything came back in, and you built the.
Yeah, so we got Amit onboarded as a co-founder, and that's how we got tech in house. So whatever the service team was, they joined, and then we started hiring.
Okay. So in terms of the tech talent, where do kind of you see a comparison? What kind of companies do these people come from? Are they predominantly from the e-commerce sector, or you're looking at any tech and then Amit brings them into the team? And
No, I think it has evolved over the years. It's not been one formula. Early on was anybody who's willing to join, because nobody was willing to join from a tech perspective. We were
why is that? Is it an interesting new category, new problems to solve? Was it just that the company was not well known? Was it more of a
not well known
brand?
We were based on Sona Road, which was not commute friendly.
Oh, okay.
Smallish office. Yeah. When you talk about the business model, people don't understand what tech is required, why tech is required. So, getting people to just appear for interviews was a challenge. It was a funnel issue. So that was a big challenge. And, sales guys and blue collar guys, you convince. Tech, you can't convince. And at that time, doing interviews on Zoom and everything was not a kind of norm. So everything was face to face. So if you invite 10 people for an interview, only 2 showed up. It was so bad. And remember what 16, 17 was also time where Paytm and Snapdeal had gone berserk in NCR, right? So any tech, anybody would, they had, hoardings of hiring on the highway, where if you are a tech, you just join Paytm and Snapdeal at an insane price. So it was a challenging time, but again, at that time, our strategy was anybody who's willing to join at our price point, we welcome. So anybody who's done engineering from tier 2 colleges, but has good logical insight and bad communication, it works for us. Because you don't need to be great in communication, especially we had a small team at that time. So if you have a smaller team, then communication is not a challenge. As the team grows bigger and bigger, then communication and those kind of things matter.
Correct.
So early on, it was, yeah.
So in terms of training, I'm assuming you would have had to put some sort of a training program in place.
Not early on.
Well, accustomed to the domain.
Not early on. Early on, you are building so fast. You are breaking stuff. So early on, you expect people who just take ownership. It doesn't matter what they mean. If you have hired somebody from Java and then they said, okay, let me create an iOS app also, I want to learn, you give them that opportunity. And you say, okay, self-learn, wherever you get stuck. You have Amit who can brainstorm with you. He's logical. He may not know the language, but we'll figure it out together. So you actually need people with high ownership rather than high skills. And that worked really well for us early on.
So has this translated to lower attrition in the tech team? Because these are people who've been probably like the opportunity that you've given.
Yeah.
And they had the freedom to move around.
Yeah. So yes, we had been very low attrition till certain phases of the company where suddenly everybody was getting crazy offers. A lot of people moved out, but that was okay. We also encourage people to find their right path. It is not necessary that their career can only be built through Cashify, or without Cashify is going to be bad for them. We encourage people to say, hey, this is what I was looking for at Cashify. I've done this. Now I want to look at new growth levers. We'll support you. We'll figure out ways to, we'll recommend you. We're happy to do that because that's the natural progression from the company side and from your personal side. It always has to be, any partnership for it to win has to be win-win for both sides. It can't be one partner getting an undue advantage over the other. And an employee-company relationship is also the same. The organization expects loyalty and some ROI on the work, while the employee expects continuous learning and fair compensation. And if any of those things are not matched, then they should look around. I suggest people not to stick to a company more than 3 to 5 years. I think anything beyond that is unfair to the company as well as to the employer. You will stop learning. You will get into a comfort zone.
Well, that is such a cool insight, very counterintuitive to what you would hear, where people do want to generally suggest if you are going to grow in a company, build a longish career, then you
need to be differently built. I'm just talking about 90% of the people, right?
Yeah.
There are many people in my organization who have stuck around, and because they kept evolving as time grew, right? They were not chasing the same things. They evolved. They learned new things. They wanted to try new things, and we allowed them to do that. And they keep delivering results for the organization, and they thrive. But I'm saying, if that does not matter, you don't need to stick around.
Correct. Do you see a lot of, and this is again coming from a tech side, one of my personal grouses has been people stay engineers and stay at the back end for way too long, especially in startups where you need to understand the customer. Maybe, one of the good ways is to kind of get them in front of the customer quite often. Even though you get involved with customer interviews and few other things, I don't think people really, especially from the engineering folks, they appreciate what happens on the field unless you are in a sales role. So you did talk about Amit moving around into a sales thing, but do you kind of see an interest in the engineering team or the development team saying, okay, thoda business bhi seekh lete hain, let's go into a little bit of sales? Do people come forward with these things with the kind of culture you guys have built?
Yeah. So we have been very flexible in terms of what roles you can do. My current CTO is now, always on the hunt of what business meetings he can attend to understand from where the requirement is coming from. And not just, you give me a requirement and I will build it. So understanding that is very important. Also, we have been culturally very flexible. So at one point of time, my retail head had left. My retail head, who was earlier my sales head, had moved to a retail role, and he left. And we were scouting for a new retail head. And my HR head, who came from a retail company before that, said he is interested to take a BU role because HR apparently is not revenue generating, and hence he wants to be more important in the organization. And we gave him that opportunity and became retail head for next 3-4 years, driving the retail strategy. So yeah, we are very open to people because fundamentally we believe that there is no skill which cannot be learned. If there is the right motivation and hunger in you, you can actually do anything.
So in terms of the retail expansion, when did that like really start? Because at some point in time, I think you stepped out of the NCR area and started having retail stores as such.
So we
right.
started
So-
retail back in 2019.
Okay.
And the insight was we got from one of our counterparts in China who had put a 1100 store footprint in China, and which really worked for them because one, at that time, primary digital had become really expensive in China to acquire customer, and hence for them the natural move became offline acquisition. And also this as a category, you need constant reminder. It's not a instant gratification category. You won't see a Cashify ad and say, hey, I'm going to sell my phone because I saw the ad. It is that when you are in the market to sell the ad, I should become your top choice. And for that, I have to constantly remind you that I exist, because I'm not an exciting category for you to remember. So that's where our offline kind of strategy kicked in. We opened some stores in 2019. From a marketing point of view, they worked really well. But at that time, we were not selling refurbished devices from the store. It was just an acquisition strategy where you can sell your old phones. And then COVID hit. So we had to shut down majority of our stores in 2020. But COVID gave us a lot of thinking time, breathing time. And we evolved our retail stores into a format where we can sell refurbished devices as well. And that's how we pivoted. And then when markets opened, we were actually one of the few companies who were scouting for retail outlets while everybody was saying, oh, offline is over, offline. So we actually took a lot of advantage at that time, where we got great sweet deals on rentals and everything, because we were the only few ones who were looking for stores. So that's where our aggressive, growth started happening on retail.
So in terms of people on the retail side, now obviously the retail culture is very different from corporate culture as such, right?
Yep.
In terms of both in terms of attrition, in terms of training. I'm assuming I've never been in the retail space, so I don't know operationally what goes into it, but I would assume there are way too many things that are different.
Yeah.
So and given that
Way many things which can go wrong.
Exactly, because of way many things that can go wrong. Now,
Yeah.
given the fact that it is physical, multi-city, and so on, is there anything in terms of leadership or in terms of organization structure that you had to change once retail came into the company?
No, I think one of the major pillars for retail has been training. So we have a dedicated training team, which was not there before retail.
Okay.
And so we have regional training teams for every region. And I think that's one of the key building blocks of a standardized retail experience, that they are trained similarly across geographies. So your experience in Delhi is not going to be different versus your experience in Chennai. The one is the IT and the tools and the look and feel, but also your experience. So, and I'm not saying we are there yet. I think we have still a long way to reach a great benchmark. But I think one of our key focus has been training. How do you do training, standardized training modules, not just from um, how they teach you about the product, but also how do they do soft skills with you, how to create empathy with the customer. And our customers are not, we have every kind of customer working. And we have blue collared workers, we have senior people from MNCs. So it could be anybody, and you can't treat them differently. So how does that work in the whole ecosystem? So yeah.
But would that not be similar to other mobile retail experience stores, for example, from a mobile manufacturer or so on? Would that not be your hunting ground to get people, because they're probably already trained on a lot of aspects of it, right? They know how to sell the cell phone, and.
So we do, but this is a different category. So selling new phone versus selling a refurbished phone is a category change altogether. When you walk into a new phone store, you are already have a trust on, they'll sell you new phone, it'll be a sealed box. So those things are already taken care of. While when you walk into a refurbished store or a Cashify store, then you're not just selling the device, but you're also selling the trust, the 6 months warranty, why it is right to buy a refurbished. So we get added responsibilities of, delivering trust for the category as well.
And that trust largely starts from the store level, or at the corporate level, you ended up doing a lot of branding activities to tell people who you are.
It's mix of everything. It's you look at our product, you look at our communication, what we deliver in the product. When we talk about quality testing, we give a report with the phone you buy. You have a proper invoice, you have a data wipe certificate. So it's not just one thing. It's a combination of things. It comes with the product, your experience, your warranty experience. So everything is combined, and then.
Okay, hear you. So, again, going back to the org structure question now, multi-city, different types of people. You have now tech, you have operations, you have the factory, and you have now retail. In terms of, obviously, there are so many different things, and between the 2-3 co-founders, I think it's hard to keep up to a level where you're deeply involved, right? In terms of leadership development inside the organization itself, what fundamental principles did you guys follow? I mean, did you, and especially as it started the retail expansion into it, did you have to relook at any of the leadership development programs inside the company as well?
So that has also evolved with time. I think one of the key thing we look at in terms of people is ownership, which has from being day one or kind of
correct.
Primary thesis. And this is what's been thriving as a culture in Cashify. If you take strong ownership, that means we are willing to give you more opportunities across teams, across things. So, for example, my current retail head was a regional bulk head, sales head in the organization. And he said he wants to pick up regional retail in South. And we gave him that opportunity. He's grown into the system to become head of retail. Just because he put his hand up in one meeting and said, I want to pick this up as a challenge. And he delivered. And then when you deliver something, you get rewarded. So when an organization is built on taking ownership and you will get rewarded on delivering results, then everybody gets aligned to it, saying that, hey, I need to own my work, deliver results, and then I can get whatever opportunity I need.
So how do you do performance management in these cases where somebody is probably built his career 5-6 years is one thing, now moving into a new one where probably there is a little bit of a learning time for them, and then they begin to deliver. So what kind of performance management framework is put in place for these leadership roles?
Yeah, so for the last 3-4 years, we have had a strong, so I think one of our key hiring has been our CFO, which has built a culture of building correct AOPs and delivering on it, and such a detailed AOP that everybody knows what to track for themselves, and hence we as a organization are able to deliver those kind of results. So I think if you can measure and then deliver on that measurement, I think that becomes the key. People can self-calculate.
But generally when you're changing roles, you would probably need a little bit of a ramp up time,
Yeah,
a little bit of personal guidance from the founders, right?
yeah. So everybody is, so in the organization, everybody is attached to one founder. Or
Okay.
so nobody is left isolated. So it is either the founder or some CXO which they are associated with, and they become their guiding light to how to run that. And especially when we talk about new projects, we give them 6 months, 1 year timeline to do anything. We want them to do everything wrong, so that we know what can go wrong in the systems before we build an AOP for that kind of category. I think we encourage doing mistakes, and one of the core thesis here is that if you're not doing enough mistakes, that means you're not taking enough risk. And if you're not taking enough risk, that means you don't have ownership, because you are just doing a job where you feel that if you take a risk, that you'll be fired. So that means we don't trust you enough, and you don't trust us enough to deliver that.
So that, it's very interesting that you say that. So can you explain a little more? How do you attach this everyone to a founder type of thing? This, again, I'm assuming this is for senior executive roles and so on. Like, because each one of you founders are also individually different. You'll probably have a different way of working with people.
Yeah.
And so on, right? So, and also, like you said, somebody who's coming in, for them to give confidence that it's probably you will fail to begin with. So this trust establishment, is there anything you guys have figured out over a period of time? Any secret sauce here for the rest of us?
I think it's very personal. Every leader has their own way of working, and we don't interfere in each other's working style till we deliver results. So I think results speaks for themselves. And then there are obviously, you will have some senior leaders who are more comfortable working with some founder.
Correct.
And then that also is okay till you are delivering results.
But in terms of this, it's almost like like you said, you are showing faith in the person. The person is showing some faith back in you, and that you're going to collaborate and get this to work.
Yeah.
Were there things where you were personally probably you didn't have enough from an experience perspective to pass on? Let's say all of us come from certain education and experience that we've got.
It's not the experience we are passing on. It's generally the risk-taking capability, where I'm saying, hey, go ahead, don't worry, I'll take the blame.
Wow.
But you need to risk it.
So they are convinced that you have their back, and they can go and do things.
And if things go wrong, things go wrong, and we learn from it. But if you don't do it wrong, then you don't know if it will work or not.
So is there any interesting learnings there? In, like, does it work with most type of people or is there some effort that you need to put into to get people comfortable with this mode of working?
No, I think it takes time.
Okay.
Especially if people are coming from corporate background, who are working in structured organization.
Right.
I think they are taught not to take risk, or that is not their KPI to figure out risk taking.
In fact, they may be rewarded for not taking a risk.
Yeah. So it takes time. But and that's where our role comes in, where we make sure that they understand that risk is part of the culture, and if they don't take it, then it is a problem.
And when you put in systems like this, how closely do you need to manage these people? Would like micromanagement break all of these things? If you
so again, it is a very personal leadership style. For example, I have a very different working style compared to my other co-founders. And so maybe early on, first quarter, I may do a lot of micromanagement till I get confidence that they understood how to work under me. And then eventually I give them a lot of more freedom. Uh, uh, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've been accused of giving too much freedom to my team. So it can go either way, but yeah, and for different people it works differently, and that's what you can't have a standard SOP to how to run people.
Correct.
You need to build an equation with everybody, understand what is their needs which are driving their motivations, and try to figure out if you can fulfill those needs through the work you're doing together. And if that matches, then everything works out.
Fabulous, man. So I think just extending the same thing to compensation in terms of obviously compensation is a big part of a lot of these things. So generally, what has been the compensation philosophy? Obviously, and especially you are in a business where unit economics matters, and I'm sure that, like you said, operating principles, each store. It's almost like a collection of a whole bunch of small companies, right?
Yes. So everybody run their P&L and everybody has to take their cost out. And now we are at a nice place where people hire as per their cost structure. So I'm very happy from that point of view. But again, this is an evolved system which has happened. When we started out, it was, and I told you before also, it's always been, hiring had been always a budget limitation. I can't hire the so-called best because I can't afford them. But is money the only criteria of judging people? Are the best people the most paid? Is not true. That's what I feel. Right. I think for me, hiring is all about matching the right person with the right role, which means spending a lot of time interviewing and taking time. So if you're not doing that and then you're just hiring because that person did it for that organization, blah, 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 it doesn't work. You need to spend for one role at least go through 50 candidates, I think, bare minimum. Because one wrong hire can really screw up your trajectory. And it has happened to, again, everything what I'm talking about, I've learned through doing mistakes. It's not that from day one we had the right people, everything. So it's been a journey. And what I'm trying to tell you is that I have learned all through doing mistakes. I have hired wrong people. I have hired too fast. I have hired overpaid people. I have hired underpaid people. So you need to figure out what is the right balance for that role and always deliver on that now.
So what's one thing that you would never do again in terms of hiring? Something that's probably bit you so much that you said, hey, ye to kaam nahi karega,
So I will never hire bad attitude. So skill versus attitude, I always hire for attitude. Skill can be developed. Attitude cannot be changed.
And any compensation related things that you would want to avoid?
So generally compensation is the last part of discussion, where once I've decided I want to hire somebody, I want to figure out if it matches what we are offering and what their expectations are. If it does not match, I actually don't offer, because I don't want to underball somebody with high expectation and get them to. So eventually now when they come in, they have to take their money out of from their either sales or whatever role they are doing. And if that role can't afford it, I will not hire you. I also don't like negotiating with people and underpaying them. It doesn't, if they're not motivated and not coming in motivated. So especially for, sales kind of role, it's better to build an incentive plan which covers up their goals and desires, and you do enough sales and you make more money. So you make more money for the company and the company pays you more. So that
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, that is what kind of has worked for us now.
So one of the big things in terms of compensation for any startup is stock options, right?
Yeah.
So how do you guys view stock option? Did you at any point in time think, like you rightly said, you could hire people whom you could afford at that time, and that's probably in cash. But for a growing company, ESOPs is also another attractive compensation tool, right? So what are your views? How did you, any experience in using it positively?
So we have yet not hired anybody who have compromised on cash and taken ESOP as an alternative. So early on, I've had people who could have gone to bigger companies. For example, my first sales head, he was coming from Amazon, and he could have gone anywhere. He was a great guy. We matched his compensation, but we made it attractive through ESOP, right? Because he could have, I'm sure he could have gotten a better salary somewhere else also. Not by much, but yeah, he was in demand person. But first he believed in the mission. He understood the business model. He liked it. And then we said, okay, to make sure that you have skin in the game. And I think for me, ESOP is more skin in the game, that the value of the share will only increase if you take it from here to here. So in Cashify, a lot of people have ESOP, and there are two ways of getting it done. One, you are a senior hire, where early on we give you and saying that now you have to take the share price from here to here. And for that, the business needs to grow from here to here. And hence, this is kind of your bonus reward structure, right? The other is you have worked for us for 1-2 years and we realize you are a great person and we want to make sure that we retain you. And hence we start doing, start giving shares to you so that it becomes more meaningful for you to stay along with us. So that's how we have used it.
So this is across divisions, for example.
Yeah.
Retail, look at it the same thing.
Yeah. So retail, warehouse, tech, sales, everybody has got it.
But generally, what are you seeing in terms of younger audience who is not part of the tech ecosystem, whether it's ops, factory, retail? Do they generally understand ESOPs, appreciates the value it can create, or
I think
paper plow types?
So I have two views. Pre-COVID, I didn't think people really valued shares or had an understanding. It was just an additional bonus, which may come, may not come. People don't really care. I think post-COVID, people understanding of ESOPs and shares has improved. They started seeing examples of people who had joined early, became wealthy because of that. So that has changed now. I think I'm seeing more and more people have a greater understanding of that. Their motivations are driven by that. So it's been a very drastic change, which happened kind of over 1 year, where people understanding quietly changed.
So this is, you're saying general, I mean, because we also, if you kind of look at the growth of demat accounts and all of these online public broking platforms, everybody grew after COVID, right?
Yeah.
So do you see that effect, or is it something from Cashify's perspective?
No, I think general awareness of how ESOPs work and how if you get in early, you can really make money, started reflecting on people. I think it is also on the ecosystem play. When startups doing buyback or IPOs, and because of that, wealth started getting created and people started getting to know people. Oh, this guy had done it, and my batchmate from that college was early at Flipkart and he made so much money. Suddenly people realize that there is power.
So you guys also did a liquidity program a few years ago. Any change in experience before and after the program? Was there more confidence that isme paisa ban sakta hai, and the company has done a liquidity program? And was there like, I don't know the details in terms of the program, but were more people positive? Did more people sell versus not sell? Any things from there?
So actually, I've not ever analyzed it, but I think there is greater appreciation of ESOP anyways, post that liquidity event. Um, I don't know how to quantify it, frankly.
Okay.
I'm saying because both we did our liquidity, I think in 2019 or 20. And after that, COVID happened. So I think there has been an overall change in perception on ESOP. I think that married with that could have a result, but I really don't know how to quantify it. I think now people understanding of ESOPs and everything is anyway very strong. New people coming in expect ESOP as part of compensation. So the general knowledge is high.
But generally, do people come back and ask you guys a lot of questions after ESOPs has been given? What is this? What is that? How does it work?
What is vesting? What is the cliff? How does it work? Yeah. So, yeah.
But is that like, have you seen any difference there in people understanding it more now, more questions? And how do you guys manage it? I mean, I'm assuming the HR would probably take care of this, but is there any formal system in place?
No, so we have a tool now where they can track their ESOPs and a lot of knowledge on that tool where you get to understand what it is. But generally they we have a dedicated HR/finance manager who does training programs on how does it work and what are your rights and those kind of things.
Okay. And I'm surprised when you said that even now nobody has taken options in lieu of cash. Now the company is big, the category is known thanks to you guys. Any reason why you still think, even at senior level, it's the same issue, is it? People would rather optimize on salary than say, okay, I'm okay with a little bit of less salary, give me more options. That discussion has not happened at any levels at all?
I have not seen somebody saying, give me less money and give me more options.
Wow. Across the board, across seniority.
So people will say, okay, yeah. So we've had this discussion where we have had bad years, right? And we say, I can't give you increments, and in lieu, I can do shares. And if you give people option, right? And let me give you 10% increment, or you take 20% worth shares. People will choose 10% increment, has been my experience. There are only very few people who value shares as an asset. And there have been both on both sides.
Interesting.
But far lesser people who value shares versus hard cash.
So, I mean, I'll take you back several years ago when you guys did your manufacturing company. While I was preparing for this, I just looked up a few things where one of the things that stuck with me was what you said about, you guys trying to make the manufacturing job a little more respectable than it was in the locality where you guys were operating, and so on. And that's fabulous. Now, you also sold the company and you said probably this wasn't a scalable option, so we had to sell, and now obviously Cashify is a great story. But in terms of manufacturing, with what's going on in the country right now, any personal opinions on where things are? Would you start a manufacturing company again at some point in time?
I don't want to. It's just super hard work. I think I think manufacturing the hardest job in India, right? And it's just not a people problem; it's an environment problem. And while the government agencies are improving overall, but there is a mindset which is how do you shut small businesses across, and with that mindset, you as an entrepreneur are always struggling to keep things afloat. Even in terms of manpower, a classic example is that we bought uniforms for everybody. We created more stuff, health incentive. Nobody wanted it. And nobody wanted to wear a safety glass, no helmets. Every time we were creating incentive plans for them to wear it. That if you wear it for 30 days regularly, you'll get this bonus. If you would. Now, for their benefit, we are doing this, but we need to incentivize them further to actually implement it. So it's a challenging workforce because they have not seen better. They are limited to what they have seen. And if you look at the SME manufacturing, it's a very hardcore,
Hard.
and even the owner worker relation is not great, which I don't like. And one of the reasons we moved out of that was that the ecosystem where we were, they were not treating right. And this is not the kind of organization you want to build, where everybody is equal. Everybody, they're working for you for money. You treat them respectively, and then you build something together. But the mindset is very different in manufacturing. And I'm not talking about the bigger manufacturing. I'm not talking about PNG manufacturing or a C8 manufacturing. Obviously, those are large scale organized manufacturing units, and I'm sure they're great. But I'm talking about the SMEs who have small units.
Thanks for doing this and really, really appreciate your time.